Soft, dramatic music begins to play. You won't believe the incredible story we're about to embark on. This is no ordinary tale. This is the story of Moses, from slavery to freedom. Prepare yourself, because by the end of this video, your perception of faith and courage may just be forever changed. Music swells, transitioning into a mysterious yet hopeful tone. Our narrative begins in Egypt, thousands of years ago, where the Israelites lived under the heavy yoke of slavery. The Pharaoh, fearful of the growing Hebrew population, gave an unthinkable order to kill all newborn Hebrew boys. But in the midst of this darkness, a tiny spark of hope emerged. A Hebrew woman named Jochebed defied the Pharaoh's decree and hid her newborn son for 3 months. Soft instrumental strings, adding suspense. Realizing it was no longer safe, she crafted a basket out of reeds, coated it with pitch to make it waterproof, and placed her baby inside. Setting the basket afloat on the Nile River, she entrusted her child to God's providence. Can you imagine the anguish and faith it must have taken to let go of her child, not knowing what would happen next? But God had a plan, a divine plan far greater than anyone could imagine. The basket drifted downriver, where it was found by none other than Pharaoh's own daughter. She saw the crying infant and took pity on him. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." Ironically, the child destined to deliver the Israelites from Pharaoh's oppression was raised in the very palace of Pharaoh himself. Isn't it amazing how God works in our lives in ways we can't possibly foresee? Now let's fast forward a bit. Moses grew up in Pharaoh's household, but he always felt a strange disconnect. He knew he wasn't like the Egyptians who raised him. One day he witnessed an Egyptian taskmaster beating a Hebrew slave, the sights and sounds of that brutal act igniting a fire in Moses' heart. Overcome with rage and a sense of justice, Moses struck the Egyptian, killing him. Fearful of the consequences, Moses fled into the desert, leaving behind the only life he had ever known. Music shifts to a reflective tone with violins and light drums. In the wilderness, Moses found refuge in the land of Midian, where he married a woman named Zipporah and became a shepherd for her father, Jethro. Years passed, and Moses settled into what seemed like a simple, uneventful life. But God was not done with Moses. Oh no, this was only the beginning. One day, as Moses tended his flock near Mount Horeb, he stumbled upon something extraordinary, a bush that burned but was not consumed by the flames. Intrigued, he approached, and then he heard it, a voice. "Moses, Moses!" It was the voice of God. Can you imagine the awe and fear Moses must have felt? God told Moses he had heard the cries of the Israelites and had chosen Moses to lead his people out of Egypt. Moses hesitated. Who was he to stand up to Pharaoh? He wasn't eloquent. He wasn't a leader, or so he thought. But God assured Moses, "I will be with you." And when Moses still doubted, God gave him miraculous signs to prove his power. Music rises with a sense of anticipation. Armed with God's promises and accompanied by his brother Aaron, Moses returned to Egypt. He courageously confronted Pharaoh, delivering God's message, "Let my people go." But Pharaoh's heart was hardened. He refused, scoffing at Moses and his God. Then began a series of events that would shake Egypt to its core, the 10 plagues. Picture this: the Nile turning to blood, swarms of frogs covering the land, infestations of gnats and flies, livestock dying, boils afflicting the Egyptians, a hailstorm like no other, a plague of locusts, a thick darkness enveloping the land for 3 days. Yet Pharaoh remained obstinate. It wasn't until the final devastating plague, the death of every firstborn in Egypt, that Pharaoh relented. Music takes a somber tone. But this wasn't just any night. This was the first Passover. God instructed the Israelites to sacrifice a lamb and mark their doorposts with its blood. When the angel of death swept through Egypt, it passed over the homes marked by the blood, sparing their firstborn. This event became a cornerstone of Jewish faith, a powerful reminder of God's deliverance. Finally, the Israelites were freed. Can you imagine the celebration, the relief? But their journey was far from over. Pharaoh, consumed by anger and regret, changed his mind and pursued the Israelites with his army. With the Red Sea before them and Pharaoh's chariots behind them, it seemed all hope was lost. Music swells into dramatic tones, with rising intensity. And then, God performed one of his greatest miracles. He commanded Moses to stretch out his staff over the sea. The waters parted, creating walls of water on either side and a dry path down the middle. The Israelites walked through, safe and unharmed. When Pharaoh's army tried to follow, the waters crashed down, swallowing them whole. Standing on the other side, the Israelites rejoiced, singing praises to God, their deliverer. Instruments transition into a hopeful, triumphant melody. But even after such breathtaking miracles, the Israelites' journey wasn't easy. In the wilderness, they faced hunger, thirst, and doubt. Yet God provided for them every step of the way, from manna and quail to water from a rock. And at Mount Sinai, God gave Moses the 10 Commandments, establishing a covenant with his people. Moses' story is one of obedience, faith, and leadership. It's a reminder that God often calls the least likely among us to accomplish extraordinary things. Moses doubted himself, but God didn't. And because of Moses' willingness to trust and obey, an entire nation was set free. Music fades into a gentle, reflective tone. So, what can we learn from Moses? Perhaps it's that even when we feel unworthy or ill-equipped, God sees something in us that we can't see in ourselves. Perhaps it's that faith in God can move mountains or part seas. Or maybe, just maybe, it's that our greatest trials can lead to our greatest triumphs when we allow God to take the lead. So tell me, isn't this story a testament to the incredible things faith can accomplish? Imagine what God could do in your life if you trusted Him as Moses did. Take a moment to reflect on that. And remember, His plans for you are more wondrous than you can imagine. Music fades out as the video ends.